And he said the rock was glowing, or whatever it was glowing, but it wasn't a fire. And he was compelled, he froze. And one of the guys came up and turned him and pointed, and he felt compelled to walk in that direction, and he ran into the party. Then they went back. Nothing.
You had mentioned that, was it your grandmother?
Yes.
Had told you some stories.
Yes, Rose.
Fascinating.
Prentice, Rose Parentice. And she was in McCloud in probably 1904 to, she passed away in the 70s.
Uh-huh. And tell me what happened. That was very fascinating.
As an adult. Well, she used to tell the stories about, in McCloud in those days, there was a fence all the way around McCloud. And there was the opening for Mount Shasta, and then there was opening, I think, into Squaw Valley, probably. Can't really remember, but. So she said these guys, very tall, slender, humanoids, used to come down, and they would let them in the gate. So it must have been something that they were trading the whole time, and they would have gold nuggets, and they would come into, and that was the general store that had everything.
At that end of the road.
Right there. That whole building was, it started out with a little pharmacy area, and then you went into the clothing area, and then you went into the, market area, because that was it. That was a company store.
That was the store right there.
That was a company store. And so they would come in and trade for things, but they would never talk to each other. And she said they always had their foreheads covered, and they would look at each other like they were communicating, but nobody could hear the verbal. So she always thought it was before ESP or anything.
Right.
She said they somehow could communicate. And
so she knew these people.
She'd seen them. They would come in, they would barter, of course, everybody likes gold, so the company store would take the gold, and then they would go away.
Were they indigenous people?
Well, Lemurian was the big thing back then, Lemuria, and different people have written books about that was a power spot. There were people in the mountain. And he said the rock was glowing, or whatever it was glowing, but it wasn't a fire. And he was compelled, he froze. And one of the guys came up and turned him and pointed, and he felt compelled to walk in that direction, and he ran into the party. Then they went back. Nothing. So you don't know. I mean, there's so many. But everybody always thought Lemurians, at least in my head, because my generation was more, but they didn't know. They had no clue what.
Wow, that's quite a fascinating story.
Yeah, it's amazing. One day, a guy came in. This is why you can't, unless you spend hundreds of hours researching this. He had a military, and I don't know. I didn't realize what it was from. So all these, the military insignia for the United States. He took it off, and he was cussing up a storm. And I'd seen him before. Freaking bodies. And I tell you what, if they would have handled Roswell better. So, yeah, you ever read this book about Roswell? And I went, what the heck is Roswell? What is this? They go, Roswell, New Mexico. There was that. And that started my UFO interest, because here nobody talked about it. Well, who were they? Who was their real name?
What about the plane that the guy rode out?
Oh, yeah, the next day after hearing all this, and I'm listening, reading, I'm bored out of my mind. Oh my gosh, that plane was back, and they only made 5 of them in the United States. It's a military, fast, jetty, small thing that can, I don't know. I'm not into all that. And he goes, that was there. So I assumed that was that guy's plane, because he would only come in on some weekends, like 2 weekends out of 4 or something. And so I assume he was coming from Washington, D.C. here, because his kids wanted to, they were all, it's the 60s.
Exactly.
I mean, really, Roswell.
So he's talking about ETs.
Well, Roswell, what other Roswell and moving the bodies, and why didn't they handle it differently? And this is so stupid.
The crash and the bodies of the ETs.
Oh, I didn't know any of that then. I wish I was a freshman on McCloud. Hi, I'm Patsy.
Nice to meet you,
Patsy.
Patsy.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Jen. But you go to Roswell, and it's all been very commercialized.
Oh yeah, we went
little green men
ago.
everywhere, and
there's
no sense of responsibility to depict the truth accurately in the UFO museum,
Yeah.
and everything is just very commercially driven. It's like, look, come here, we got aliens, you know. But
Because there's nothing else there.
Yeah,
except
there's
for
nothing else there.
ranches and some racehorses. I
yeah.
mean,
So the local community, you know, tries to capitalize from the popular culture aspect of this. But yeah, there's a crash site, 1945 in
where
Socorro,
would it
New
be? Like
Mexico.
you're going down to 25?
You exit San Antonio, going to the Owl Cafe, you know, in San Antonio.
Oh, I've seen this.
It's a famous restaurant where
Yeah, I've seen
Oppenheimer, the leader of the Manhattan Project, he used to go there for lunch a lot with a lot of the other
Really?
engineers when they were going to the Trinity site to do the testing. It's right there, the exit to San Antonio. Like if you're going to go to Ruidoso,
Yeah.
you take that road. So it's nearby there.
But that's where the crash site was right there?
It's nearby, yeah. The military found a way to disrupt their anti-gravitics. I mean, just because it was the 40s doesn't mean that they didn't have classified technologies that they were also using back then. And they did. They
It
had,
was after Tesla, so.
yeah, it was after Tesla. I mean, 30, 40 years later
Stuff you
that
don't
his
think
technology
about.
was subsumed.
The government brought them down. It wasn't an accidental crash. They were brought down. They were.
Dozens of them.
They disrupted the way that they operated, and they literally crashed.
But they were brought down because they thought there were the Soviets on one part, and then when they didn't, they realized they had all this technology with them. So there was a reverse engineering process that started happening back then, and 10 years later they had their first prototype, their first anti-gravitic prototype, October of 1954 specifically. The government was already flying in anti-gravitics. In fact, a lot of the UFOs you see nowadays are...
I was wondering if it isn't government
Yeah.
stuff. I was wondering because there's a lot of stuff in San Luis Valley and they have all this stuff, and I'm kind of thinking,
Yeah.
I don't know. It leaves you going, is it us, them, who?
And it's something that could change the world in an instant, but they choose not to share it. So we're hoping that in this century there will be a change of paradigm, and all this
All you
will be
need is
shared.
1% of the population to change that.
We could irrigate all of the deserts. We could end hunger and poverty with the technology that humans have, a select group of humans
Yeah,
have.
but money.
And it would change
always
the
follow
entire
the money.
planet.
Yeah, but not, yeah, for them especially.
Yeah. So
Gotta follow the money. That's,
yeah. But we believe that in this century everything is going to come out. It
that's
has
good.
to.
Positive. I gotta stop.
It's because every life support system is in decline. We can't wait anymore. All of these technologies are going to come out because they have to. I mean, in 20 years, it's going to be too late to fix all of the things that are wrong with our planet. And a lot of these higher civilizations know this. So they're basically
are they going
waiting
to, for what?
for us to have enough of a level of consciousness as a civilization for them to help us. They're going to help us help ourselves, but they're definitely not going to come and save
They're not
us
gonna
in the
interfere
way
with-
that it's been depicted by religions, that there's going to be this event where we're going to be just saved. We're not going to be saved. We're the ones that we've been waiting for. We're the ones that are going to have to save ourselves.